Hey everybody, how's it going? Zach here with a review today. I won't be doing a crazy amount of these, but I will be doing them occasionally, especially if I'm going to be running them or using them. I would like to use something first before I actually decide to do any sort of review. I think even just reading something over and giving it a good thought process isn't quite as close as it would be to actually running something. And that being said, the campaign I'm running currently is in this really nifty setting. Let me fix this really quick. The Neverland setting, as written by Andrew Kolb, as written, illustrated, and laid out by Andrew Kolb. This man is a freaking, he's super amazing. Like, super amazing. Everything about this. I just fell in love when I even first started hearing about it, and after I read the whole thing, it was just, I couldn't get enough of it. First thing you're going to notice is the art style. Like I said, he's illustrated everything here, and it's very reminiscent of the actual concept art of Peter Pan when it first came out. Maybe it wasn't concept art, but like the frames, you know, the storyboarding art itself. The whole campaign should take place in Neverland, or it could be some place that's visited. I'm starting my players out on the first level, and I am basically just taking him through the whole thing. A big part of this is that it's actually a hex crawl, and keeping track of time and where the crocodile is at is really important. Mind you, we're like 3 sessions in, we're only 2 to 3 days. I think we're going to be on the 3rd day tomorrow, or on our next session. What I did was I made my own, I took snippets of both of these, and I made my own board in Tabletop Simulator. That's where we're running all of our stuff, as much as I would love to do face-to-face Tabletop Simulators, getting the job done currently. And I have to say, this is probably the most usable setting as far as like stuff that you could just bring to the table. You could like whip this book open and just start using it. Not just because of, like, you know, most setting books are lots and lots of lore, blah blah blah. There's a good amount of lore here, but Andrew leaves enough of it open for you so that you can basically do whatever you want with it. And I'm going to touch on that in a minute. Also, if any of my players are watching, I will be doing a spoiler warning, and I want you to look away, because secrets, you hear? Anyway, so there's a quick rundown of the world. There's a nice chase sequence ruling here. And then we get into Chapter 2, The Cast, which is a whole monster manual with very unique monsters that you interact with on the island. Once again, we'll get to the whole hex crawl element of it, but it's very, very intuitive. As you can see, instead of like having a whole giant stack of like saves and stuff like that, and what they're good at or what they're not, this is more of like in an OSR kind of mind frame where instead of doing that per se, you have one stat that they're really good at for saves, one stat that they're kind of good at, and one stat that they're bad at. So as somebody who's running the game, it's easy just to reference this really quick, be like, okay, cool, I'm not going to do this, or I'm going to give them the bad stat, or I'm going to give them the good stat. And I think the easiest conversion you could probably do here for, like, say you're going to run old school essentials and going to be doing this setting specifically, if you just cut the health by half, you'd be really close to having things that you could just bring to the table whenever. I have noticed that these creatures are perfect for my 5e group. Speaking of 5e, I probably should mention this in another video, but we're doing a heavily modified version and we're experimenting a lot with the rules, cutting rules, adding rules, you know, to try to make it a little bit more hardcore. Or maybe not even hardcore would be the word, but you know, more of an old school style. I've run 3 sessions and I've already had 2 character deaths, and I'm not going to say I'm proud about it. I just let the die fall where they fell. So things can be more dangerous here. Actually, very specifically, the Dagger 2 Tiger snuck up on the party and took out my Artificer in basically one fell swoop. And nobody was, I mean, I told him from the very beginning of the campaign, just expect your characters to die. It happened. It was also kind of a punishment too, because two of the characters heard the tiger coming and didn't warn anybody beforehand, and so I hope they learned that lesson. I hope they learned that lesson. Or did you guys learn that lesson? I don't know, did you? That being said, this adds also, it's also very interesting because they add there's a lot of politics in this game. There's a lot of different people you can align yourselves with. Let me see if I can zoom out a little bit here. You can align yourselves with the giants here, who are essentially like a lawful hive mind, constantly maintaining the jungles of Neverland. They seem to be pretty self-contained. I would say, once again, there's a lot here that is said but isn't explicit. So you have all these different factions, and they can all, you know, the gnomes themselves. There's a whole, you know, city of gnomes inside Neverland. How they interact with everybody else is basically up to you. There's just a couple of prompts, their personality traits, their ideals, their bonds, their flaws, and other proficiencies. And then you can really shape it the way you want. Basically what Andrew did was give you a big chunk of clay that's in the shape of Neverland, and then you add in the fine details. And I'm going to get to how I specifically did that later on. Oh, there's golems, the great white bird. Anyways, a bunch of cool stuff here. Captain Hook, everybody has their own stats. All of them are, you know, really neat. Michael is here. So you get to, you know, really explore and have fun with these interesting characters. Also, you'll see here, this little doodad is specifically, there's a realm of Fae called Elfame. You can see that on chapter 4 over here. And it's very different than the island itself. Let's see. How's it going? There's spiders. Okay, so there's giant bugs and then there's giant spiders. Giant spiders are working with the pirates. The giants working kind of by themselves, fighting against the TheLich'sWard, which also is a very nice addition by Andrew. The TheLich'sWard take place of the natives in Neverland, because come on, Disney, that was not okay. Anyways, let's go to the island itself. As you see here, we have a really nice hex crawl map. The rule is that traveling from one hex to another takes about 4 hours. I've changed that rule ever so slightly myself. I feel like travel on the beach would be almost twice as fast, because you're not going through dense foliage. So anywhere there's not obviously like hard terrain, I have changed to be a 2-hour travel time versus a 4-hour travel time. Once again, I was handed this beautiful lump of clay, and I'm molding it into the Neverland I want it to be. You have everything you could need for any kind of random encounter here. Just every time you walk into an area, you roll a d20, see what you have, and then you roll a little bit more, and then you can create a whole adventure on accident without even trying to. That's what it happened in the first session. It was really, really quite nice. And it's also really nice for somebody who doesn't like to prep very often. I'm not a big fan of that, but and I also have 2 kids, so it's sometimes finding time to prep is hard. Here we have Elfame itself. There's a different way of traveling in Elfame. We haven't gotten there yet, so I haven't gotten to try it, but basically you roll a dice and you add it, and then you get to your location and you subtract it. I think that's what happens. I'm not 100% positive. I'm going to have to read this whole section before we get to it. The resources are awesome, though. This is chapter 5. Basically, each area, including the crocodile, has a quote-unquote dungeon, sort of. This would be a pretty loosey-goosey dungeon, honestly. But it would be, you could definitely have an adventure going on here. The Crocodile's Nest, I plan on putting a bunch of just different dungeons. I've somehow accidentally started creating a crocodile cult or something. It just sort of kind of happened. You know, really interesting areas. The Iron Mines is very interesting also. It's another one of those like randomly generated dungeon, essentially, is what it is. You get different rooms. You meet into different rooms by traveling in different ways. I believe how it works. Yeah, movement through the mine is determined by the GM, but know that the adventurers are never alone. So it's kind of the way you want to run it. There's also these 2 entities that live inside of the mine that cause whatever's close to it to be hot or cold. I think my plan is to do something like a point crawl, where you begin at the certain area of the mine and then you move out, and depending on circumstances, maybe the way you came in changes, and then you are in a different area. Also, the library of the mine specifically is very important to the story I'm building, and I'll continue to get to that. And of course we go to John's tower next. John has an upside down tower buried under the sand on like the 2nd location. He's a lich now, which is super dope, right? John Darling is a lich. Oh, so good. It's so good. So that's actually, once again, that's really important to my story, where like some of the backstory to like why everybody's the way they are now. Because, mind you, this is way ahead of time from where the movie was, or the book. Basically, the idea is that John, Wendy, and Michael never left the island, and they grew up on Neverland. And because Peter didn't use the same magic on them, they actually grew up. They aged. And so I feel like they're very important secondary factions in the game, whereas the more important factions are like they're not quite factions. They're like lone people who are on the island that have enough power to fend for themselves, and you could bring them into a certain faction. Speaking of which, the main factions in the game are going to be the Lost Boys, the Pirates, the Mermaids, and Attila with Twig. And I guess technically the Giants, but in my campaign they're not. Anyways, and so far, since I decided to do a shipwreck, they are just meeting these people randomly and getting reputation randomly here and there. The skull is really interesting. It's basically like just Gonzo dungeon, a Saurus Rex, you just start rolling, and all of a sudden you have this crazy dungeon, and you can, it's just completely bonkers, and it's a lot of fun. And I don't plan on using it right away, but depending on the goals of my group, they may be going there quite a bit, so we'll see. The village, Tilly Village, Wendy's Hut. This right here. Okay, this, if anything else, these tables that are provided with this book are amazing and worth the price of admission. I've used them several times and come up with really cool, awesome adventures, just really quickly too, without even really trying. But what's really important, and what really made me get super down with this book, is after reading it and getting to the rumors table, basically I read every single rumor, I chose the ones I liked, and then I created the backstory that I wanted. There's some really great, really well written fiction here by Andrew, and it really does help you get into the mindset of Neverland. Mind you, mine's a little bit darker than this. Of course. Anybody who is running a game is going to end up being dark. Let's see here. Is there anything else? Oh, this section right here is actually really cool. There's like a behind the scenes, which you don't get to see nearly enough of, and some recommendations by Andrew. But some behind the scenes of different locations, some concept art early on. Man, it's just super cool. Early versions of the front page, title page. And then this is actually something I really found interesting. His first ideas of like how the politics would work in here. Mine's a little bit more loosey-goosey than this, but I actually took a lot of inspiration from this right here. Mermaids worship the croc. Okay, cool. So that's like this thing that's always been in the back of my head, and now it's really starting to blossom in my campaign. I love this book. I think it's fantastic. I think anybody who is interested in playing this game or playing in this setting should get the PDF. At the very least, just grab the PDF and take a look. It's really, really well written. It's just a delight to look at the pictures. And there's so much stuff that you can take from it. And just like I said, the chapter 5 by itself, 100% worth the price of admission. I love this book. Please go get it. Support this man. Make him make more things. He's very good. Also, I tweeted him and I asked him how I should start my campaign, and I pitched him my idea, and he got back to me in like 5 minutes. He's a cool cat. I like him a lot. I think I'm done with this video. Later on. Oh God.